long pauses. Just like when I'm in the middle of saying something, it stops pausing. Yes, don't adjust your set. I know my head is really, really huge and it's all in your face, but it's okay, people. You'll make it through it. You won't be scared for too long. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Reason Reborn. I'm here with Cardiac Sumo. Say what's up to the people.
What's up, people? I'm not as close and intimate with you guys, but I still love you.
Yeah, no, I just didn't even adjust my camera, so this is scaring me because all I see is like old gray hair all over the place on my screen. It's unnerving. It's affecting my ego right now. So we're gonna try to get through this quickly without me having to like turn off the camera and shame. By the way, you probably don't notice it because I did a poor job. I need to get a better razor, but I shaved my face for charity. Um, by the way, thank you again, sir, for your donations to the
Yep.
Extra Life, and thank you to everybody who donated. I appreciate it. I made my goal. I streamed for 19 hours. I still owe you guys like six, so I had to figure out how to fit that into my schedule because I didn't expect everything to go crazy like it was. But if you go to my personal channel, Black Vegas, you could see all that information over there. I will be doing the other stream, and I will be doing something. I'll give you the joy of telling people what I'm going to be doing as a thank you, since you were one of the rabble rousers who helped create this nonsense.
Of course. Well, we hit our goal. What are we at? Like $300 here?
Yeah.
Pretty awesome. Uh, and in celebration, Mr. Magus, in addition to shaving off his illustrious beard, there will be doing a few dances for us. Whole big song and dance. It's gonna be awesome. Gonna be doing what? The Carlton, which was my idea. I'm very proud of it, and I can't wait to see this whole production you've got. I have to see like my name in the end credits when you're done too, because I'm just saying. I don't know what the second dance was, but
It's the second dance for all you gamers out there. It's the Fortnite dance. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just type Google Fortnite dance and you'll see it. It's not that long of a dance, thank God. And I am not doing the whole song for the carton dance. Just letting you know now. Probably get 2 minutes because I probably my fat old ass probably passes out after the first verse. But you will get the dance, including the step move. That's the thing that I think is going to be the hardest part to do.
oh yeah,
That look,
I would.
that thing
Yeah,
does.
I didn't want to be a dick and request that, but I'm just
No,
saying.
I planned on trying to do that. That's why I was like, it's going to take me a little bit of practice because I got to figure out how to get that down just right. The
There's
like,
probably like YouTube tutorial videos and shit.
yeah, I just have to go watch Fresh Prince episodes. Just maybe Alfonso Ribeiro. But
He doesn't have a name. His name is Carlton. Don't do that.
I'm sorry, I called him
Don't do
by
that.
his government name. The Carlton. I have to
We don't do
study
that.
Carlton Banks, and
Exactly.
yeah, and kill my ears with like that damn song over and over again. What's his name? I forget his last name, but the guy in Vegas who sung the song. That's his name. Um, yeah, the Fortnite dance is pretty quick. It's like 20 seconds, and I just had to dig deep back into my childhood because he does the Running Man and all this other stuff, and it's a combo of moves that you got to hit it right though. So I have to practice that.
No, you shouldn't sigh. You know, it's something awesome to look forward to. And at the end of the day, you know, we played games and healed kids. Or you played games, and then collectively we healed kids. I guess.
Yes, you guys helped with the healing part. I just did the play games part. So now I have to dance. It's gonna be so glorious, but it's okay. I'll get through this. I've done much more embarrassing things in my life. I'm sure. Um, just know that you'll probably get a blooper reel too, because I'm sure it's going to be some hilarious bloopers of me falling or something like that. I almost thought about attempting to do the kid and play jump too at one point. I'm not going to do that because I don't think I can get my leg up high enough through the other leg. Even
You know,
for that move up.
stretch for a few weeks in preparation, and then
Man,
do anything you put your mind to.
I need to like pad my floor I swear. No. But anyway, let's move on to a much more happier subject matter, which is politics and news. So, first, we're going to start off with something that happened right after we recorded our last show, which was Sam Clovis was the nominee for the Department of Agriculture. Jeez, why can't I speak? He was up for the head of the Department of Agriculture. He pulled his name out of consideration, generally because he is one of the principals named in the Trump Russia investigation, and a lot of people feel like he's probably next on the list to um, face it, indictment. Me personally, and I'm sure Cardiac agrees, he should have withdrew anyway because he has no business anyway trying to be the what was it they call that position? The chief scientist
or something like that.
Yeah,
Can't remember the full thing, but
guy has no interest in science. Doesn't believe in a lot of the things that Department of Agriculture studies. He has no experience. Well, I forgot what business he was, but he didn't even have anything that had to do with agricultural business. He was just a businessman who Trump threw out there. He was going to head our research for and development for like food and the USDA's policies on what passes for human consumption. He was going to have us all eating like toilet paper or something like that, I'm sure.
Delicious.
I mean,
anything seasoned right, man.
I mean, he had no business. And now we find out his biggest attribute is he knows how to connect Russians into American politics. So, man.
Yeah.
Godspeed to him. Glad he didn't get that job. Second topic, Elizabeth Warren kind of like caused the big furious fuss amongst everybody when she did an interview and they asked her after I forget her first name, her last name's Brazil. She wrote a book and she basically dumped all these secrets about how there was a whole big movement for Hillary to become the presidential nomination, that Hillary flexed the muscle, basically coerced the leadership of the DNC to, go with her and to push Bernie Sanders to the side. And they asked Elizabeth Warren, is there corruption or was it rigged? Was the system rigged in Clinton's favor? And Elizabeth Warren, not one to be shy with her opinion, said, yeah, it was. We kind of did some fucked up stuff. And we took the election away from Bernie Sanders. Now, of course, doesn't necessarily mean that Bernie was going to win. There have been people who've stated facts that if you looked at all the polls, Hillary, in most cases, was leading comfortably and would have probably got the nomination anyway. But it does stand to reason that she did use her political sway to make sure that she got this, and it's kind of fucked up. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, you see not a lot of unity on that side, which, take it or leave it is a good thing. I have more of a question on that point. It certainly does feels kind of gross, a little sleazy, but are they not allowed to do that? This is like a question about the rules of these committees, I guess. Are they not allowed to have favoritism for a particular candidate? They're not like...
Oh, see, the problem was they were basically saying like she was going to people, like she went to the head of the DNC at the time. She was going to the biggest donors and like telling them, I need you to side with me, not with him. And it was kind of like, I guess the way that they made it sound, it was kind of like Michael Corleone in The Godfather coming to you. It was like, I did you a favor now and come to like ask for a favor for the family type of thing. Like, okay, I gotta do this because I can't disappoint my godfather or whatever you want to call Hillary. It was just like she just really pushed her influence. She used her influence herself to get everybody to fall in line and make sure that she got the nomination. Which she didn't do anything illegal.
Right.
It was she didn't buy. They made sure to specify she didn't buy anybody out. She just basically used her influence to gain what she wanted, which, yeah, it's sleazy, but it's not like, again, and it's funny how Trump tried to jump on it and tweet about how crooked things are. It's like, okay, what she did was really immoral and sleazy, but she didn't do anything illegal. What you guys have done, probably, on the other hand, is illegal. It's election tampering. That is a crime.
Right.
So, that's where it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, that's fucked up.
Yeah, that was
But
the root of my question, because we've been talking about her manipulation or whatever, her ties to the DNC for since the election, and I remember feeling like it does give me a gross feeling, but I certainly don't think it's something you should throw her in prison over, or it made me wonder, is the DNC not allowed to show favoritism toward a person?
oh, and that's the thing, you can't, and to be quite honest, they're making it sound like she just bullied the whole room into doing her will.
Right.
I guarantee you it wasn't as easy as her just bullying the room into her will. She probably did have to make promises that she didn't want to, or things like that. Sadly, it's what they do in politics. Even the most purest of politicians has probably had to make some type of deal that they didn't really want to, but in order to get to where they wanted to do, or do what they want, you have to make concessions. It's just that we're going to always look at Hillary as this evil monster. That's it. And I've been saying it before the election, and I've said it after. Her personality, the way that she comes off, the way she projects herself, is what did her in overall, because it's not like she doesn't know what she's doing. In comparing politics and politicians over the years, she's not as dirty as there've been some. She's not really dirty. She's just, the Clintons are kind of like subtle bullies because they have such cachet that they can kind of use like the respect and all of that they gained from his 8 years to make people do some of the things that they want them to do. You know what I mean? But they're not just ham-fisted, like ram it down your throat. I'm good. You better do this or else type people. I mean, they play the political game. They play it really well.
I think that's something to acknowledge. There is a political game to play. I think a lot of people just don't expect this type of behavior at all. I somewhat expect it, and I guess that's why I'm not. It doesn't bother me so much. Like I said, it makes me feel a little, like, yeah, that's kind of gross, but she seems demonized to a degree that just is not rational for somebody who's unfortunately playing the political game as it is. And she's certainly not at the same level of Trump, because what he's, I shouldn't say what he's doing, but what we're talking about with them is really illegal. We're talking about treason on some level to the country. That's a pretty
you've let a foreign government influence your country's election. That's, what information did you give them? How privy are they to it's like, because you have to think, if they find the tie between Trump and Russia and make it stick, you got, like I said in that like dark, despair-ridden speech I made a couple of weeks ago, you're opening up a whole bunch of can of worms and ideas and bad thoughts out there that can make this potentially the worst thing ever in American history. So I mean, can I say I'm disappointed in Hillary? No. Again, I guess having seen her in her political career, I know how she gets. A lot of people still forget. Before she conceded to Obama, she offered to make him vice president if he would just step aside. This is the type of person. I mean, so it's not like it's all of a sudden brand new that Hillary would do something or say something fucked up to get what she wants. You know? But at the end of the day, it's like she doesn't do criminal shit. She's not a likable person. That's
equate that with what we're talking about Trump doing, because there's a lot of people who say, like, who will hear what you just said and say, see, she's just as bad as Trump. It didn't matter. We're talking about a whole different level right now.
Yeah, it's like
I can't make that distinction there. They're not here and here. They're further apart.
Yeah, forgive me for using the stereotype, but she just comes off as that bitchy wife compared to, but he comes off as like, yo, I'm gonna rob you blind and then I'm gonna try to get away and act like you did it. He's a criminal.
I was trying to be careful not to say that, but at this point it is looking increasingly, I mean, this society is kind of a criminal even outside of this, just in his own business.
I mean, someone who says that he just grabs women by the pussy, I guarantee you not all of them allowed you to do it. But you know what? I'm not even going to go down that path. Let's just say that for right now, the Hillary thing, like, I'm not excusing what she did because she's fucked up. But I think that it's the way politics are, and I'm gonna probably get into it more when we get into our discussion because I've seen some tweets that really pissed me off over the week too. Probably why I'm so tired, because people just piss me off in every arena.
They've got 240 characters to do it.
Huh? Oh yeah, now you got twice the characters to do it. Now I could actually scream louder on Twitter.
It's probably said something about me that I saw that and I was like, I'm not impressed.
Well, did you see my tweet where I was like, and I tweeted it to Twitter? I was like, you just like gave a lot of people who don't need that a lot more room to say a bunch of bullshit. Now it's like, and we all know who's going to take advantage of the 280. We all know who is. Jesus, you just gave that guy twice as much.
No, I thought we were talking about me. All right.
Oh no, I mean, what you say, trust me, you're not going to be spreading toxicity throughout the world. I guarantee you that. But yeah, that guy, oh my God.
20 years later, why did America end? We gave Trump twice the characters and he like fucked up through the whole world.
Exactly, because now he can really tell North Korea what he thinks, which ain't good. Speaking of him, okay, let's just run through his shenanigans. So our president is in Asia right now. Forgive me for saying our president, because I know a lot of you are going to, as soon as you hear that, say it's not my president. And I understand, but
he is. Fuck you.
For all you want to deny it, he is the president of the United States, and he is now representing us over in East Asia, where he's been kind of offensive.
Right.
Yeah, I know, that's a big surprise. Although I will defend him on this. The fish food thing, people. Really? Y'all want to bang on him for that? It's like, if you don't know the fish food thing, basically he was feeding fish with the Prime Minister of Japan. And he was trying to pour the food out and just dumped a bunch in. Like, oops. Like, okay, so, the man's stupid. He don't know how to feed fish. It's like, one, I think we've established how we feel about his intelligence a long time ago. So, no need to point that out. Two, it was just an accident. Him feeding fish. Don't be making bulletin stories and retweeting and starting Twitter fights because the man don't know how to pull fish. The man doesn't know how to do any work. He said it himself. He's never done a day of work in his life.
Never fed fish before.
So why would you expect him to have domestic capabilities such as that? Seriously, so it's no big deal. Stop banging on him. What you should bang on him is his speech to the Japanese parliament, which, oh my God, why would you say this? So I'm paraphrasing what he said. But if you look it up and you listen to it, it's the same context. He basically was talking about the United States fighting against, their enemies and things like that. And he made a comment where he said in front of all of Japan, people who try to come at the United States get hit hard, and we all know what that's like, right?
So was he doing that to be a dick, or was he just too stupid to understand?
That's the thing. I think a little bit of both.
Okay, because I was confused. Because I can't know if he's intentionally being an asshole, or if he's just that stupid.
Yeah, that's the thing, and you cannot tell because he has that look on his face. Because he always has that douchey look on his face when he's trying to talk tough. Like when he's trying to talk tough, he has that look on his face, like yeah, listen to me, I'm the big guy. Like, are you serious? Do you think that was appropriate to say?
Oh my God!
But people still, for some reason, like this guy. And then the bombs. What was? Oh my God! About the rockets that North Korea were firing. He said he doesn't understand how a nation of samurai warriors couldn't shoot down a bomb.
I feel like that was a little racist. Like,
okay,
I like to overuse that word, but I was like, what the fuck?
But let's just go deeply into this, because yeah, it is a little bit racist. It's very definitely stereotypical. But when the last time you've seen a bunch of samurai running around in Japan?
Not every day. I mean,
for me, Dynasty Warriors, the last Dynasty Warriors I played, that's the only thing. Video games. Although I do want that Sucker Punch game, the Ghost of Tsushima. That looks hot. Anyway, that's for another podcast. But okay, so one, there are no samurai warriors in Japan. Feudal Japan is over, sir. You missed that boat. God help me if I see a picture of him trying to swing a samurai sword, by the way. I'm gonna, I don't want to see the image. Two, okay, so what do you know about samurais?
That they were a warrior class at the time. I'm not sure what kind of details.
Okay. Do you remember samurai walking around with anti-aircraft weaponry?
Nope.
So what was he expecting them to do? To pull out their swords and throw them in the sky and cut the missile in half?
I mean,
like an anime?
I was about to say, if he's an anime fan, then yeah, that's perfectly reasonable to expect.
Like, I don't, and he's not done. This is his first stop in Asia, so it's many more Asians that he can offend. Like, he's gonna go to Philippines and he's gonna probably celebrate their leader, because their leader is basically the closest thing to a dictator in Asia that we have, and that's his dream, I think, to be like a dictator or something. So he loves that guy.
Remember during the election, a lot of people were making fun of us because he was there, and a little bit after too, like just make other countries, I should say, were making fun of us. And I remember thinking, man, this guy is embarrassing us in front of the whole world. And I keep forgetting that he's actually going to go out there to the world and embarrass us from there too.
Yeah, he actually is going to go set foot in other countries and make an ass of himself.
It's like, part of me thinks, I think of us as like keeping him contained in the country, and other countries don't notice. Which is not realistic, but that's the way I like to think of it. It's like, we got this little asshole here, but we're hiding.
Yeah, because they just get news blurbs.
Yeah,
they don't get to see it live and in color.
Not great.
But yeah. Oh, by the way, we have something to celebrate as the United States. We are the only country greedy enough to dismiss science in a way where we're willing to let the earth burn. Because today, Syria became a member of the Paris peace climate. There were only two nations that weren't a part of the Paris peace climate agreement, and one of them was Syria. Guess who the other one is?
China?
Australia? No, it's us. Okay. Now we are the lone country.
I just want to say, when you said we have something to celebrate, I didn't know you were sarcastic, and like I was getting kind of happy. I'm like, oh man, what's happening?
I'm sorry, I crushed you.
That was a cold hard kick in the teeth. What the fuck?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to crush your whole face. Yeah. So the United States is the only country in the world, not in this hemisphere, not on this continent, in the world that's not a part of the Paris climate treaty.
You're gonna have a lot of people who are gonna say, you know, that agreement isn't really effective or shit like that. But I think the major point here is that we don't have a commitment to respecting science. That's why we had what's his face Clovis almost take the top scientist position when he's not even a fucking scientist.
Yeah,
you can argue the effectiveness of that agreement if you want, but the bigger problem is in this country we don't respect science at all.
Yeah,
that's depressing, but
yeah,
not as much as the rest of the fucking world.
We have Department of Energy head who said openly he doesn't know what the hell he's supposed to do in this department. Clearly doesn't care about things like clean energy and all efficiency, anything like that. By the way, he's going to kill your driverless car. You know that, right? If he's able to, if this administration lasts 4 years, he's going to kill the driverless car and the electric car and any other, like, you know, fuel efficient, environmentally friendly, and, you know, smart energy technology that's coming about. So, yeah,
depressing.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm killing your joy.
It's, as somebody who deeply respects science, it is very troubling to see it attacked on all sides from everywhere in this administration. It is very dismaying, and it's embarrassing to say that America is the last country to join this thing. And by last, I mean we haven't done it yet, and I don't know that we
will. The thing is, we were part of it under the last administration, and then the current administration says, "You know what? I don't believe this stuff. I'm pulling out of this deal."
Yes, we are the
the
outlier here, and
we pull out
a leader in the world.
We pull out, but a country that's over there chemically bombing their citizens is at least has the wherewithal to say, you know what, we're doing some really fucked up shit, but at least let's not mess up the environment and let's not kill the earth while we're doing it. That's kind of sad.
I remember when Trump was elected, there was the argument that, you know, other countries looked at America a certain way, other countries in like dictatorships and whatnot, their citizens looked to us for guidance and inspiration and stuff, and they argued that because Trump was there, you know, their leaders could now say, look, even America can't do this right. Even America isn't so great. And then they argued Russia would do that type of thing with their propaganda. This is a perfect example of that. You have a country like Syria able to commit to this, but we're over here. We can't even agree that this is a problem worth dealing with.
Yeah.
It's troubling not just to us, but to the whole world, because we are very important. You know, not to, you know, blow smoke up our red, white, and blue ass, but we're a very important powerhouse in the world. We can't be dicking around doing stupid shit. We affect the entire planet.
Yeah, well, just wait till he fires his first nuclear missile.
Well, hopefully it's right on me, because
I just hope, like, you know, that something happens to where reason will come somehow and he will rejoin that agreement. I don't know. I feel like he's just too busy treating it like a business meeting negotiation where he's trying to, I guess, coerce the world to like ease back on some of the policies so that his constituents, his business friends can wreak havoc and make as much money as they want. That's the only reasoning I see behind that, which is even sadder.
To me, that's a positive reason because my reason is that he thinks it's a hoax, the Chinese
Well,
hoax.
no, I don't. I think he doesn't believe it either. I
That
think he thinks it's a hoax as well. I think also that because it came from China and not from the United States, he's kind of like, you know, no, well, those Chinese people don't know what they're talking about. All they can do is add math. I could see that being his fucking logic in his head. Seriously, because he loves to throw out stereotypes about everybody. So,
I mean, samurai warriors.
exactly. So, um, I don't know. Do you want to talk about the shootings, or did you?
Sure. Should they
Um,
They're important.
yeah,
Not any
and
more
it's
important than what we
sad
just
because it's kind of been politicized, and it didn't have to be. Trevor Noah is right. If he could learn how to just stick to one sentence comments, he would be fine because it seems like anytime he tries to expound upon a train of thought beyond one sentence, he just fucks it all up. But anyway, I'm sure you all know about the shootings in I forget the name of the town. What was the name of the town in Texas? Stafford, I think.
Oh, I thought it was like spring something.
Yes, Sandy Springs or something. Apologies for not remembering the name, but there was a shooting at a church where 26 people were killed by a gunman who we found out as time went on was ex-military. He had mental issues, shouldn't have been let into the military in the first place. Also, had been accused of domestic violence. He beat his wife. He um, shook his stepson so hard that he caused fractures in the child's skull. Like, how hard do you have to shake somebody? I know the child was only two at the time or something like that, but how hard do you have to shake someone to fracture their skull? Jesus.
So I guess I'm behind on this story because last time I checked, we were not privy to this information yet. So
Yeah, no.
To me too. Right now.
Okay, so yeah, you get all this background stuff,
Right.
and that he was able to buy the gun because the military, when they discharged him, didn't share certain information, so that they knew that he was mentally unstable. Of course, honestly, that might not have made a difference since months ago, President Trump abolished the rule that was set by the previous administration. It's a running theme with all of his policies here. Just abolish everything that the other guy did, basically. But he got rid of the law that said that you had to do mental background checks and that you couldn't sell weapons to somebody who had mental issues. So even though the state dropped the ball on their policies, he probably could have still skirted through because technically you're not supposed to do that anymore, according to our president.
So you talked about it's been politicized. Do you want to touch on that then?
Well, see, this is the thing. Someone asked him, does he feel like there's a gun issue in the United States? Which is a valid question. And his comment was, no, this isn't a gun issue. This is a mental health issue. There is no gun problem in the United States. And then he continued to go on, of course, as soon as people were like, well, no, that makes no sense. Him not wanting to be proven wrong kept expounding on that whole process. And it's like, okay, so now you've brought it to the nation's attention. What's the problem? And now you're saying it's a mental health issue where this guy was still allowed to buy guns with a mental problem, and you allowing people to buy things. So he kind of stuck his own foot in his mouth deeper, I guess you could say, because it's already there. I think that his toes are somewhere near his intestines right about now with all the shit he said. But he's brought back the debate on gun control because of the law that he abolished, and because this guy was able to skirt through. And Texas has interesting gun laws that I just found out today. So this guy was trying to get a conceal and carry license, which he couldn't get. He couldn't qualify for because he didn't want to do the paperwork. He didn't want to take the course because you have to in Texas to conceal and carry. You have to get the background check. You have to go to a course and get training and all that. And this guy just wouldn't do it, so they didn't allow him to get a conceal and carry. So he couldn't walk around in public with a handgun. But there's no law against buying a weapon, despite all of that in Texas. Despite not clearing any of the rules for conceal and carry, if you just want to buy a gun, you can buy a gun. Now, who is, of course, common logic dictates is if this guy was trying to get a license to carry a weapon on him, if he just goes out and buy a gun, he's not going to just leave it at his house, right? So the gun rules are strange. I just wish he would take certain measures, and that's the thing. This is where it really gets politicized because we go back to, of course, the bike path incident in New York with the guy back there. He wanted to come bring down all hell and brimstone on this guy and wanted to come up with all these laws. But twice now we've had 2 of the 5 largest domestic shootings in this country, and he's just like, it is what it is. What about it? And I don't know. What are your thoughts on the whole thing?
I think there's 2 things there. First, with the gun laws, you mentioned him putting his foot in his mouth with that. I think that's just because a lot of people, when it comes to issues like, gun control, abortion, gay rights, stuff like that, whatever type of bubble they're in, they just hear the same arguments bounce around. So they start just repeating these catchphrases like, it's not a gun problem, it's a mental health problem. Guns don't kill people, people kill people. Shit like that. And, dude, the point you just made, that doesn't make sense for more than one reason, but this is a problem. We don't really seem to want to talk about it. We'll do anything to avoid talking about guns. And I admit that, some people on the left are not very effective in talking about this. They'll say things like, look at what country is it, Australia, whatever, that has like a total gun ban. They'll try to compare us to that and say, we should do that. We should ban all our guns. Not acknowledging that there's certain challenges that are unique to America. We have a lot of guns already in circulation. Not quite that easy to do that. But yeah, it's just this problem. Not just him. A lot of people who, no matter what kind of gun violence is around, they'll do anything to shift responsibility from it being a gun-related issue. And it's just going to keep happening without us really addressing it. And again, you can't even talk to these people. They just won't budge whatsoever on this point. Excuse me. I'm just hearing a lot about what you said about this guy. That actually weirded me out for a second that you said he could buy the guns without having that conceal and carry. But out of curiosity, when you said that, I had compared it to being able to buy a car without a license, but apparently you could do that too. So
yeah, you can.
It's not very intuitive, but I guess.
No, it isn't. And it's funny because it even makes lesser sense that it's a lot more stricter to carry a handgun, but you can own as many assault rifles as you want. Just don't carry it on you. Just don't bring it with you. They're relying on the honor system. Basically.
But yeah, I think we need to get better about talking about this issue on both sides. The right, you need to acknowledge that guns are a problem of some kind. Not saying we should, repeal the Second Amendment, whatever, take everybody's guns away. Nothing all that extreme, but we need to be able to talk about ways to deal with this without you immediately jumping to, it was a mental health problem. It was just the person is a bad egg. Jesus made me do it. You can't just keep shifting blame to everything.
Jesus made me do it.
Everything but a gun. And I saw somebody on Twitter who's said, every time one of these gun things come up, we talk about this. How come people never, talk about people killing people with knives or cars? They always try to equate guns to other shit and just to place all the blame on people. But there is a valid argument that a gun is a unique kind of object that can kill people pretty easily. It is different fundamentally, but
I mean, that's its intent. That's always been its intent.
it makes it
It's,
very. I mean, if somebody was coming at me with a knife, I think I'd prefer that to them with a gun.
yeah, because at least if I'm running from someone with a knife, I have a better chance of outrunning that person than I do a bullet. you know, um, and you don't really hear about those violent crimes like that because it's just a rarity. Yeah, it happens. Sure, it does happen. Um,
I
but
hate this argument that even if we took all the guns away, people would still find a way. If you're very motivated to kill somebody, yeah, you'll probably try to find a different way. But that's like saying, if I'm on a diet and I'm trying not to eat chocolate, that there's no difference between me having a Snickers right by the nightstand on my bed versus me having to drive 50 miles to go get it. The ease of
yeah,
doing something does affect how willing you are to do it, how
yeah,
capable you are to do it.
and that's to me that's also saying don't try to make things better.
Right.
Just because you can't stop it from happening. It's like, well, none of us can stop ourselves from dying, but like in my case with my heart disease, yeah, I'm gonna die regardless, but I don't want to speed the process up. You know what I mean? So I should probably try something to like make it be like further in my future. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like you can do things that you can at least try. I mean, true, I may drop dead tomorrow, just drop dead, but it's not going to be lack of like me trying not to die tomorrow. I'm not trying to wish it on myself
Right.
or make it happen. You know what I mean?
Approach
I'm
things
not
in life
making
with
it
a
easy.
defeatist attitude.
Yeah,
You have to have some faith that you can actually do something. And like I said, there are problems with the way people on the left do try to approach this. Like, it seems like a lot of them don't really know much about guns in general or think deeply enough about challenges in this country to certain gun control things or take even seriously the issues with freedom around gun control because there are legitimate arguments about freedom with that. It is a balancing act between freedom and safety, but in general, we need to get better about talking about this because we get nowhere with this fucking conversation because you have one side who completely cannot even acknowledge that there is any problem, at least as it relates to guns, and then one side that generally ignorant or a little extremist. I don't think it's an equal problem. I think this is more a problem on the right, but in
yeah.
fairness, I do acknowledge there are a couple bad habits on the
So,
left.
what do you think would be some good ways to help deal with gun control? Because, and again, I think people misinterpret the term gun control because I've seen people who, even on the left, who do defend the Second Amendment, but whenever they hear the word gun control, oh, so you just want to take away all our guns? No, not necessarily. Or, oh, you just want to keep guns on the streets? No, it's not the point. It's a there's a like definition here that I think a lot of people are missing. But I'm curious, what is your when it comes to gun control? What do you think would be a good um, set of rules, regulations, policies?
I can't remember. I heard somebody made this sort of analogy. I think they made it to like they made an analogy to like a pilot's license where it requires shit ton of training to be able to, fly a plane or whatever. I think you start treating gun safety like that. You need to be very well trained and be willing to keep up with that training. A lot of people, like this fucking guy, I guess, was able to just buy a gun without proving anything to anybody. I don't know about everyone in America, but at least when I was a kid, I was 15 years old. You had to get a driver's permit for like a year, and then you got your license. Like it should be equally or more difficult to acquire and use a gun. You need to be very competent and well trained, and prove that you understand the issues of safely storing guns and whatnot. Uh, in general, I think it should just not be as easy. I don't think we should not. I don't think we should ban people from having them, but should instill a large sense of responsibility and competence. It's too easy for a lot of people to get guns without any real training, and it is something you should be very well trained with.
What are your thoughts on assault rifles? Do you think that there should be a ban on the sale of those, or you have no problem with those being sold?
I think that's a little harder. I wouldn't mind banning them, I suppose, but I do think that it tends to misguide us a little bit because if you look at the vast majority of gun violence in this country, and we have a lot, it's not really assault rifles that cause it. It's regular handguns that people have. Assault rifles are pretty unique. If you have a crowd of people and you're firing it off, you know, that's a pretty strong killing machine. So I don't necessarily mind banning them because I don't see why a civilian should have one. Certainly not for hunting a rabbit or some shit. But uh, while I don't mind banning that, or at least talking about banning that, I think a lot of people get too focused on those because you see them in mass killings and whatnot. But in this country, we have a lot of death and injury to gun violence, and if you look at that, it's not really assault rifles in the majority of cases. It's just whatever regular fucking handgun people can easily acquire. So I think to deal with the majority of the deaths, we need to deal with the more average case, which is a handgun issue.
Yeah. Also, I need them to bring that mental health thing back. Seriously, you should have to have a psychological evaluation, in my opinion, as well before you purchase a gun, because of course any of us can snap at any time, but I don't need to. I don't need to have to worry that somebody with the personality like this guy had can easily get his hands on a weapon. You know what I mean? I mean, this guy, he was out of his mind, um, and yet he was still able to make purchases. And there's no real strong laws anymore that says, hey, you know, it's you can't be a mentally ill person and have a gun because we don't know what you're already unstable. Why would we give someone unstable a weapon? But
I assume you need psych evaluations to do at least some other things that take a lot of responsibility. So yeah, we should do that. Admittedly, there might be some either corner cases or cases close to the boundary where maybe you got judged to be psychologically unfit and maybe you were fine. I can acknowledge that in some cases it might not work out perfectly, but generally speaking, we should be able to say, this guy's a fucking lunatic.
But yeah, because I would honestly rather them to tell somebody who is not crazy that they're crazy and not give them a gun than to just give a crazy person a gun. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, there are going to be some misses on that end too, but again, at least try.
Yeah. I'm thinking logic, some people have that fear, you're skirting sort of close to limiting someone's freedom, and in America we value that. It's a balancing act, right? Like you said, there's going to be some misses here and there. That's somewhat unavoidable, but at least in the extreme case, we should not say because we're too afraid to limit somebody's freedom, we're not willing to deal with this at all. There has to be some sort of intelligent, well thought out criteria where we accept that it's going to miss some motherfuckers, but it's fair enough and balanced well enough that it catches a decent amount of cases.
Yeah, and the violating the freedom thing. I would say something that's probably going to offend some people, but there's a big problem with the Constitution as a whole because the way it was written, and I don't know if this was intentional, a lot of the laws that are put, like a lot of the amendments, if you really look at them, like just really pay attention to the text, like the right to bear arms and to form a militia. Um, okay, that's a very vague law, the Second Amendment. It's like, okay, you have the right to bear arms. Um, so does that mean guns for everyone? Or, like the thing said, in times of militia, um, we don't have no militia. We have a standing army now. So how does that equate to modern times? It's like, and I feel like our lawmakers are intentionally not adjusting the amendments, not because they want to keep some spiritual tie to the founding of this country and pay homage, but because if you really think about it, the amendments to the Constitution that were written back in the day give you a lot of wiggle room to get away with a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
and we need to change the Constitution. We need to redraft it. I mean, there have been countries that have redrafted their constitutions. You can redraft the United States Constitution if they choose to for modernization.
That should be one of the major benefits of the way we have amendments. One majorly good thing about our system is that we can adjust it over time as society gets more moral and smarter, and we learn more and things change. That is one of the best things about the way our government is set up, is that we should be able to evolve with the times. I do think some people really, not out of any just cult like fascination with it, but they look at the Constitution as just this unchangeable, perfect. They almost look at it like the Bible, like it's the Word of God, and it's perfect in its way, and it shouldn't be changed. They always point to, like, it says this in the Constitution, and it's not really an argument for why it's right so much as it just says it in the Constitution or something.
Right.
As opposed, I mean, it could theoretically be the case that it says something in the Constitution and that's wrong, and we change it. You need a better argument for things that it's just in the Constitution in general.
Yeah, I mean, and if it's something that can be argued both ways, then maybe you need to take a look at this and figure out what it should be instead of what it is, because it may not work anymore. A lot of that stuff may not work anymore.
I think there should be at least a little bit of looseness in some of that writing, because you don't want to try to predict every possible situation, and you do want a little bit of room for interpretation, I guess, as things change. But I do agree with your major point. I think some of it is just overly vague, and that might just be because we haven't changed it enough over time. I remember reading, it was a book with a number of essays, and they were talking about that whole Brexit situation, England or whatever, and they were making the argument, like, I think over there when they decided to do that referendum or whatever, it was just they needed a 51%, just a majority vote to do that. And they're making the argument that over there it's too easy to do shit like that, and over here it's too hard to change anything. That we should have something sort of in the middle.
Well, and the funny thing is, I don't think it's too hard. I just think that for us, the hard part is getting people to come to a consensus, because it's still too much of an us versus them mentality in our government structure, and they feed it to all the citizens, and the citizens pick up that us against them mentality, and it just becomes a shit show.
I think that's what they meant by it being hard, because if you want to change something, it requires maybe several steps through different part of government, maybe 2/3 votes, stuff like that. It depends on what it is, but because of what you were just describing, we end up in deadlock so much that it's really hard for us to move at all.
Yeah. And it's a shame. So now we're going to discuss something else nobody wants to discuss in this country, and nobody wants to understand. Nobody wants to try to come to a consensus, for sure, it seems. At least it seems that way. So our topic basically is race. Race as it pertains to politics, but just in general. And I'm going to try not to go too long because, hey guys, Ric Flair comes on tonight. You better watch it. Nature Boy, ESPN 30 for 30. Woo! Anyway, why did I just do that?
I'll
It's
probably fuck
fine.
it up.
Huh?
I live in the modern age where we have like DVR and shit. Like, I just don't have the same drive I used to have to watch shit live.
Some things I want to. It's just like some movie. Like I don't go to movies on premieres weekends, but there's certain things that I will be willing to break that rule for just to go see. Like I am going to see The Last Jedi.
You're
Best
braver than me.
believe. Prod hit me up. We got to figure out what theater we're going to. Um,
Braver than me, bro.
and it's just a special. That just it's like some things. It's just like this Ric Flair thing. I think it's going to be a very fascinating story because it's going to talk about his life
Yeah.
as a whole and just all the stuff that he done.
I think it's gonna
Because
be good. I'm just saying, yeah. I was talking to a friend about it the other day. It's weird. I remember being a kid, like, you better watch that shit live or you're not seeing it for at least another week. And now I'm just like really apathetic toward everything. Like, if I start it late, I'll just play from the beginning. Whatever.
yeah, like I don't even watch TV show. My favorite TV shows, I generally don't watch them when they're on anymore. I'll wait till it's finished for most of them. I can only think of one TV show, maybe like Game of Thrones. It's like a event thing, but everything else I'll binge watch. That's why I love Netflix and their structure because they just put the whole season out. It was like, go ahead and watch it when you want.
Yeah.
Love that.
I have Sling, but and Netflix and all that good shit. But we can go ahead and get on.
All right, so race in politics, something that's very, 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 very much the hot topic these days, especially when you look at things like our president calling the nation of Japan a bunch of samurai warriors and um, making mock threats about you remember that time I whipped your ass, under his breath. Uh, you have, of course, the national anthem thing. You having more people coming out talking about they're banning the NFL and never watching the NFL game ever again because these players are protesting the national anthem when they're not. They're, repeatedly said what their goals were, that they were just kneeling just to make people aware of their feelings about the inequality in race relations in this country, and that they um, have by no means no interest in disrespecting the nation or the flag or the national anthem, but nobody's listening to them. You hear all the stories of police shootings, beatings, what have you. You have the terrorist thing where as soon as someone of person of color does something, it's automatically terrorist. But if someone who's white does something, we have to take our time and figure out what this is. Oh, it's just a troubled person. Things like that. Race has, I mean, as far as we've come, we really haven't taken but baby steps, in my opinion, in the whole racial thing. But um, being this more of your time than mine's because of me being older, I'm just curious. How do you feel about the state of race in this country and probably around the world? To be quite honest.
Well, actually, I don't know much about around the world. I guess that's an interesting question globally. I haven't thought much about that, but domestically, I'm a chocolate American, as you guys can see. Uh, I don't think my opinion is going to be very popular with a lot of black people, as it historically hasn't been. I'm a little bit more positive about how things have gone. Uh, we have a significant amount of problems left to deal with, but I do think we have made. I wouldn't call them baby steps over the last couple hundred years. I'd call them, from slavery to now, incredible strides. And I do think it's worth noting what we've done right, so that we can continue to try to do more right, because there is certainly more left to do. You hit a fucking myriad of topics right there. From the Middle Eastern thing to the flag thing to police brutality. I guess let's start with the flag thing. This is something that really drives me fucking crazy about again, I don't like to pick on them too much, but this is a problem with people primarily on the right. They tend to be very, I call it fake patriotic, really. Just this, they'll paint their dick red, white, and blue if they could, just to show off how star spangled awesome they are. And they equate symbols, the flag, the anthem, Liberty Bell and Eagles and shit, just random imagery with America. More specifically, they equate those symbols with the troops. So if you don't throw yourself up on the cross and, praise all those symbols, that's you essentially like spitting in the face of a soldier. And that's not fair to say that. You know, those people who are doing that, like you said, they're actively saying that we are not disrespecting troops. And if they don't equate the troops the same way you do with those symbols, it's not fair for you to push your interpretation of those symbols on those people. You don't get to push your interpretation in that way at all. That's not fair. You're assigning to them ideas and beliefs that they just don't have, and then you're attacking them for those ideas and beliefs. They shouldn't have to keep arguing with you about how they disrespect the troops when they're telling you they don't. I think I mentioned before that I'm an atheist, and sometimes people hear that and say, "Well, you don't believe in morality. You think being bad is okay." I hate addressing arguments like that because you're assigning what you think I believe to me, and then expecting me to defend these beliefs I never said I had to begin with, right? I think same thing with a lot of these people kneeling during in these protests. They are constantly having to battle these thoughts that other people prescribe to them, but they don't actually have. That makes this whole discussion impossibly difficult because one side is attacking the other for a set of ideas that really are bad. Like if you were really disrespecting the troops, that really would be wrong. That's understandable. You'd be mad at that. But you're wasting all your energy talking about something that's not really a factor. There isn't really any intentional disrespect of any troops or anything like that. And even a lot of the troops don't seem to agree on this. I've seen plenty of troops who are perfectly fine with that or support that whole movement. I don't see unity. Maybe more troops support one side of that argument than the other, but it's a stupid argument. And it's one of the major issues we have with the race right now is that we're stupid talking about it in general. I don't know if I touched that topic sufficiently before I move on to whatever the next one was. It was probably the Muslim thing.
Yeah, but really quick, see, just to clarify why I call it baby steps, it's kind of what you were saying because when you think about okay, yes, slavery was abolished. We now are afforded better opportunities at education, at jobs than we've ever been. But there's still a big problem with even all of that stuff. And the reason I say that is because it's, as we go through this whole cycle with this administration and all the things that are going on, the protests, for me at least, it's becoming even more apparent that the reason why I feel like it's baby stepping is because those things seem like maybe it's the reaction that you get from a lot of people. Because a lot of times when you complain about racial issues, if you're the minority, the response is, well, it's not like it was back then. You're not slaves anymore. You're able to get jobs. You're able to get better education. We gave you these things and you're still unhappy. That's the attitude that you get from a lot of people. And, coupled with the same attitude with the protests, like you said, everybody's pinning what they believe you're thinking. And no one's listening exactly to what people are saying as far as why they're upset and why they're trying to bring attention to this. It's like the whole purpose of the whole thing is washed away because instead of wanting to listen and to actually have to sit down and like converse on this matter and figure out if it's better to just dismiss it as something that is not, and to keep yelling this. It's basically you're just la 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 la. In my opinion, at that point, because you have not acknowledged not a word that these people are saying, and that's why I can't, I'm happy that I'm we're in America where we get those things, but I would say we shouldn't necessarily be satisfied. And I think that's the problem, that one side feels like we should be satisfied with the way things are. And that disturbs me because there's still a lot of things that need to be resolved, because it's, I don't like the idea that it's still being looked upon as like we did you guys a favor type of thing. So shut up and enjoy what you have. That offends me, because you shouldn't treat anybody like that. And I don't care what race, what religion, just because you allow people to practice Islam in this country, don't mean that you should be able to treat Muslims like dirt. You know what I mean? Things like that. And I feel like when it comes to race, that's how this country looks at it. It's just like, well, yeah, we did some really shitty, fucked up things in the past, but now we treat you better. Right. Not perfect, but we just treat you better. So yeah, I don't understand the problem.
I certainly agree. There is that laziness and apathy. They seem to not appreciate just how recently in human history, like when I talk about slavery even, and that's an extreme, but it wasn't that long ago. It was pretty recent. For black people, you can go back maybe 2-3 generations, depends on how old you are. You'll hit slaves. It wasn't that long ago. So these people who are like, we're equal now, it's fine. Even if we were perfectly equal right now, there would still be lasting effects from the way society was just a couple generations ago. So this whole lazy, we're all good now, I think that's a gross oversimplification. And there is that dismissal. I think I said I was going to touch the Muslim thing first, but I'm going to go to the police brutality thing first because it's a similar thing. So you have black people. I shouldn't just say black people. Let's say the Black Lives Matter movement, to be more specific. So I don't, say that all black people feel this way. But you have a group of people arguing that police unfairly target black people, right? And in response to that, you had the All Lives Matter movement brought up. It's a counter movement, I guess. And one thing that really bothered me about them, was their dismissal. Like I saw things, like their attitude was like, "Oh, you silly billies, racism isn't there," or "White people are killed just as much as blacks," or just anything to not take the argument seriously. And for argument's sake, let's just say they're wrong, right? Let's say flat out that Black Lives Matter was wrong. Let's say, there is no racism in cops or anything like that. Just for argument's sake, you're still dealing with a group of people who feel like they're being unfairly targeted, and your response is to not even take them seriously, to call them stupid, to make fun of them, to not even try to understand their point of view, just dismiss them altogether. I like to compare that to, let's say I have a daughter or something, and she comes up to me in the middle of the night while I'm in bed. She's like, Daddy, there's a monster, I'm scared. And my response is, you fucking idiot, there's no monsters, go back to bed. It's all good. Even if she's dead wrong about there being a monster, I should still have some compassion and understanding toward her. And again, that was an extreme example to say, because that really is an example where she's dead wrong. But even if you don't agree or don't think that BLM was correct about their assessment of the level of police brutality, that does not excuse you to the extent that you can start being an asshole and not talking to these people with respect. I saw tons of memes over, I think it was probably last year or the year before, just this dismissal of their feelings altogether. And even when I don't agree with somebody, I don't make fun of them or call them stupid. I try to understand where they're coming from. I might think they're wrong, but I try to come at them with some kind of respect, at least. And that is one of the things I think is missing largely in this race talk in general. I don't know if you feel that same way, but just I feel like it is a lack of compassion there in that conversation.
Yeah, no, I feel like that's like, as conversations as a whole, people have that capacity to just dismiss each other if they think differently. But when it comes to race, it's serious. It's even more serious because, This is people. This is stuff that affects people's lives.
Right.
And you should probably always take that serious because the police brutality thing. People are afraid to let their children walk down the street because of things like Trayvon Martin. All he was doing was wearing a hoodie, walking down the street, and this guy gets his life taken because someone thought that he looked suspicious, being a black kid with a hoodie walking down the street in the middle of the night. Um, you know. Whereas if I saw a white person walking down the street in the middle of the night with a hoodie, I'm not gonna be like, "Yo, he looks suspicious. Let me go get my gun and shoot him." I don't own a gun, but if I had a gun, stuff like that, you know what I mean?
And again, you can argue a little bit about how right they are, but the point is, they are scared. There is deep emotion there, and you're not helping. You're not uplifting your fellow man over here when you just dismiss everything they say as stupid without thinking about it. Uh, before I had mentioned, we had that little thing about baby steps versus large steps, and I agree with you. But the reason I pointed out that we've gone far is because I think one issue that maybe BLM or those type of people have is they act like it's still slavery days. Like we've not made any progress at all sometimes. There is definitely work to do. I don't want anybody to come away from this thinking like I'm, apathetic or I don't think that there's still things to do. There definitely is. But when you have this incredibly negative attitude that, we haven't made any progress, as I've seen some of them really do, then what are you fighting for? You don't seem to think that after all this time, we've made not a single step forward. If you honestly believe that, then you're admitting that we, over hundreds of years, haven't been able to make any progress. And if we really haven't, can we? I think it is, in some cases, useful to acknowledge the progress that you've made because it proves that you can make progress. It proves that the work of, African American icons like Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King really did amount to something. Is the world perfect? No, but they did push us forward, and it is worth acknowledging that they did, so that we know. You're on the beach and you're walking, and you look behind you and you see the footsteps you left in the sand, and you see how far you've come. It is worth taking the time to see that, so that you know that you have been moving forward. I think that is one of the things missing on that side there.
Oh, see, I think
can move forward is what I mean.
Yeah, I think part of the attitude is that, yeah, we've gotten some things, but it's not enough. And I can sort of understand that. But to your point, I also understand how detrimental that could be. Because when you were talking, it reminded me the string of tweets I saw, this rapper going back and forth with people about, the state of things. In particular, he was talking about Obama. And it was the usual "he betrayed us" type of line of thought because he didn't do enough for us while he was in office, and he, that because of that he portrayed us. He, played us. We fell for the okie doke and all this stuff he was saying, and there were people agreeing. There were also black people who were just like, "No, that's not." I think that's where the problem lies in a lot of these. Like, I don't think all of Black Lives Matter hold that attitude, but there is definitely a core of Black Lives Matter that do share that, mentality. Or like when the rappers came up with the whole is them or us campaign, where like after they felt like they were disappointed by the Obama administration, we got to prove to these politicians that it's about them or us and all that. I don't think people realize that that type of stance, like you said, disavows just about any value in the good that has happened over the years. There have been some good things that that has happened, and things have gotten better in some areas. Yeah, is there again a lot of work to be done before, like not just like the African American race, but humanity as a whole is fine. Yeah, there's a lot that we all have to do in this world. That being said, I hate the attitude of that comes off basically as a, well, you owe us for all of our trouble. Do I feel like white people owe us for the things that happen? Yes and no. Do you owe me my 40 acres and a mule? No, I don't give a fuck about that shit. Like, and I hate when people always want to come with that, oh, well, we need to get reparations and all that. No, I don't need you to hand me a check, because honestly, you handing me a check, it does nothing to me but help you feel more comfortable in ignoring me, because it's like, hey, I paid you. It's like, hey, I gave you something. What are you upset about? You just you asked for a check. You didn't ask for respect as a human being or equality, to be treated fair or anything like that, But you want all of that and a check? Like, come on, that's the attitude that you're gonna get. It's like the reparations thing. Please, Black America, stop with that. One, it's not even a smart idea. Like, whoever came up with the 40 acres and the mule thing, they were lying when they said it. They just said it to make you feel good. You should know this by now. It's been it's been like almost 150 years. A little over maybe, since the abolition of slavery. Yeah, that 40 acres and a mule ain't coming. Okay.
I want 50. 40. Sorry. I'll take your 10 acres. Take the 10 acres, yeah.
I guarantee you they're going to be like, we'll give you like unlimited coupons to Popeyes and be happy with it.
Fuck.
God
damn. I couldn't even be mad at it. That would be pretty funny.
That'd be horrible. I would be damn right, like, feeling disrespected, and God damn it, there's nothing that 3-piece can do, even though it would taste good, to make me any less angry.
Real quick, I do want to point out, if any BLM people are out there, I hope it didn't seem like I generalized you guys with the group of people I was talking about. I just don't really know any other phrase to kind of capture that core group, that portion of that movement that I'm trying to. We don't really categorize those people, so I don't really have another phrase I could use to describe the group of people I'm talking about. The people who have a level of pessimism that I think is counterproductive is all I'm getting at there. I don't think all people in that movement are like that, but I just.
And to be fair, it's the part that we've been shown most of, in the media, of course, because the media will do that. They can manipulate. Like, hey, here's one for you, Trump. Yes, the media can be unfair sometimes and depict people in different ways. Unfortunately, you're probably not one of those people, because when you try to gain the sympathy, people are like, oh, maybe they're right, and then you say something stupid, and then you just fucking wash it away. So keep your mouth shut. That's all I'm saying, Trump. Learn how to monitor what you say, and then they won't beat on you as much. There's a lesson.
Yeah, but generally I think my main point is we need a little bit more, I think, positivity on one side and compassion and understanding on the other. We need to talk through these issues because they're pretty complex. If you really look at the issue of police brutality against Black people, it's not really as simple as I think either side tries to make it. I saw arguments coming out of both sides that were just mathematically kind of stupid. You see BLM say, we get a bunch of Black people killed, and then All Lives Matter is like, well, more white people get killed than Black people, and it's like, well, yes, but there's like a lot more of you. So
yeah,
if you look at the math of that it is technically true that more of you are getting killed, but you at the time made up like 60-some% of the population compared to I want to say 20.
Yeah, the numbers skew.
Yes,
it is funny because
really taking the math into account properly when you say shit like that.
It's funny because this shows how much of a nerd I am. I've actually read FBI annual reports on violent crimes over the last couple of years, and it's a very fascinating thing to see that when it comes to race on race crimes, statistically speaking, white Americans are the biggest offenders as far as white on white violent crimes. Black on black crimes happens significantly less. Now, of course, again, it goes because there's more of them than there are of us. But at the same time, you have to point out that a smaller group is being claimed to be such savages and really don't care about each other. Yet you have a larger group doing the same type of thing in a bigger, and it wasn't a like small percentage wise difference. It was a huge difference. It was like double the numbers, I think, in 1 year. I think 2015.
You can keep. I think what killed me is like when people, so you see like the white people, all lives matter people say, what more white people are killed, and then BLM will say something like, well, one, you have more of the population, significantly more. Two, the rate of deaths with black people is higher, which I think was also true. You don't really see a response from the all lives matter people to that point. They just kind of act like they didn't hear it, or maybe they just didn't hear it. And even, that point, that higher rate of black people are harmed. It's not that simple either, right? Because you can say that more black people are involved with the police and crimes and shit.
Yeah.
Also true. Not that simple either. But my point is, you can keep going down this rabbit hole, and it takes an intelligent conversation to really unravel this shit, because I can go back and forth and down this hole for a long time. It's not simple, it's not easy, and we're not going to be able to really handle this conversation, because it is, you probably are more intimate with the numbers than I am right now if you've been looking at those reports, but it can get pretty complicated pretty quickly.
Yeah. But I think that's another reason why I also say baby steps too, because of the conversation part. That's the biggest thing for me, is that we don't talk about it.
Yeah,
like even with us, we are, while I don't think we're just as dismissive as white America is on certain topics, we can be very dismissive as well to other points of view and different ideas and things when it comes to race as well. We're not we're not just completely just victims, because we do victimize other races as well.
You mean?
I think.
Okay. I thought you meant like you and me in particular.
No, I mean just like as a whole.
Okay. Yeah.
We will show certain prejudice against other races. I mean, I know plenty of family members who have serious issues with Hispanics. I remember years back when the Hispanic population in the DC area started to grow, countless black people complaining. Hell, a few years ago, during Bush's administration, remember when they had that big rally for immigration? You may not remember this, but in downtown DC, they had this big immigration rally where they were trying to have the immigration laws get changed so they wouldn't just like kick out a bunch, because they were proposing to just kick out all illegal immigrants, including their children. And of course, people were like, well, there has to be a more humane solution. So they did a big rally. And I remember coming from work, I'm catching a train. And if you catch the train in DC during a big event, know that you are going to have hell getting home, because everybody's catching the train to the event or from the event, wherever you're going. But I'm there. It's a bunch of protesters going to the rally. I'm getting off work because they were going to do a nighttime rally as well. And I'm standing there, and this older African-American gentleman walks up to me, and we're just standing, not saying anything. And he sees protesters go by, and he turns to me and says, "Aren't you sick of them coming into this country and wanting to asking for the right to stay? Why don't they just leave?" And I just looked at him and I just turned away, because I was just like, I'm not engaging in this conversation. One, I don't feel the same as he do. Two, I was offended by that. But in three, I also was saddened by that because we, and again, this is going to offend some people, but I'm being very honest. We have African Americans have built a very strong attachment with victimizing ourselves in some ways to the point where we can be irrational about it. And one of the veins of irrationality is that while we feel like we have a lot against us, we can sometimes be just as cruel as the people who we're blaming doing to us those things to other people, like that gentleman with his comments about, like, Hispanics coming to. It's like, hold on, first of all, we complain about how they don't let us, like, treat us like American citizens, yet you take the same argument they have, and it always weird to me out how we do that, where we have issues with the people who said the same thing about us, but we have no problem with coming at another race with the same venom. And it's just, it makes me very, very angry because, and it's funny, I'm not going to say anything. I'll tell you afterwards because I had a similar conversation with someone I know that kind of irritated me that they said what they said. And it was like, you know, how can you play the victim and then kick the next person down? Like, it's like we're trying to climb the ladder, and they're trying to climb the ladder too. Instead of helping them to help, we all come together to get to the top. We're kicking them down so we can further our progress. It's like that's one of the biggest problems when it comes to race. It seems like everybody wants to tier themselves. Everybody wants to tier their concerns above each other instead of having that conversation. It's like, okay, what's your problem? What is it that I need to understand to know what can possibly be done so that you don't have a problem, that I don't have a problem, that we can all, come to some type of consensus that'll work out for the best for all of us. We really don't realize how we kind of, to me, sometimes nullify our own arguments when we do that stuff. It really bothers me that we do that because, again, we're a very unique race in this country. Is that for the most part, most other cultures came here by their own will. We were brought here as property. We were treated as animals. And eventually we were able to go from being treated as animals to, at least by law, being considered. Hell, it took us forever to be even considered a whole man. We were 2/3 of a person for so long. You know what I mean? I mean, that's some really fucked up shit. And now like you said, we have progressed to a better place. Let's not, not acknowledge that that's happened. But you would think, knowing what we know, having the history that we had, that the last thing that we want to do is to cause that type of grief, that type, treat someone else in a manner where they feel like lesser than you are. Because we've probably hit bottom harder than any race in this country, and we bounced up.
For me, my personal example of that is the way a lot of us treated the LGBT community, especially, you know, the example that really creeped me out was that issue with bathrooms a year or so ago. I was like, does nobody see the comparison with this and like that fucking water fountain shit back in the day? Like, there's a lot of interesting parallels here, and we don't even seem to care. And that stuff could be a very complicated issue, but like, yeah, nobody seems to give a shit about it. They're like, oh, fuck you. Black people had it worse. Go away. Go do whatever gay shit you're gonna do. Like, I've heard people call the type of thing you're referring to as the oppression Olympics. Like, it's always me. You know, my group always suffered the most. Blah blah blah. It shouldn't just be that. It should be, how can we all unify and come up together? Uh, that type of stuff really shuts conversations down. Another problem they have is, and I was reading an article about this that made this argument that educated liberals overuse the word racist or whatever. I think a lot of people are too fast to use that phrase. Uh, the I got thrown off there. The what are they called? BLM. I've seen a lot of people, and it's not just with them, but it's with women and the LGBT community. If you even start bringing anything up that doesn't seem to fall in line with exactly what they say, you're probably going to get called racist or sexist or homophobic, transphobic, Islamophobic, whatever. Like, I had mentioned just now as a black guy that there is some level of crime in the black community that is concerning. If a white person did that, they'd probably get called racist before they even got to finish making their point.
Yeah.
We need to be able to talk about this type of shit without calling somebody racist being your immediate response, because that's a very serious charge to call somebody racist.
Yeah, because to your point, the truth is, while we're not the savages that someone like Trump would make us out to be, there are some serious issues within the black community as far as black on black crime and the things that we do to our neighborhoods and the things that some of us teach our children, raise them how to behave and how to do things that need to be addressed. Probably, yes, it needs to be addressed within our community, but just the same way we could notice when white people are doing something wrong or Hispanic people are doing something wrong, they notice when we're doing something wrong to ourselves too. And, just because they comment on it doesn't mean that they're racist. They're just, if I point out the fact that, like I used to live in this largely Hispanic area, and it was one of the like big MS-13 areas after I moved out. But you could see that coming because there was things happening, and it's like, there's becoming a lot of Latino gang violence. Now, to say that, am I racist? No. Truth is, in a highly Latino population, there was an upturn in Latino gang violence and crime. And sure enough, you had the MS-13. I wasn't predicting that all Mexicans and Puerto Ricans are going to tear each other apart or anything like that. Or I wasn't claiming this is just the way that they are. No, I just can notice that because I lived around it to see it.
It's very difficult. Like, we're going to talk about the Muslim thing soon. I personally find it incredibly hard to even touch any topic that has anything to do with Islam because, I'm an atheist, so sometimes I'll criticize religions. I'll criticize Christianity. I'll criticize Christianity all day, but if you touch Islam, it is deeply... People conflate the religion Islam, being Muslim, with being Arab or Middle Eastern, just a brown person of the Middle East. They tie them so tightly together that any criticism of Islam gets taken as a racist claim against people of Middle Eastern descent. I find it really difficult to even touch those topics because you will never be called racist there.
Well, and that's why I bring that up too, because while it's partially a religious thing, you're right. They tie it to a race. It's like if the word Muslim evokes two images to most people. Either you're one of us standing on the corner slinging bean pies and, final call, or you're of Arab descent, you're Middle Eastern, they think, oh, you're one of those people with the rags on your head, dumb shit like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
When there are millions upon millions of white Muslims in this world. Not even there were millions of white Muslims before Al-Qaeda, ISIS, all of that, and there will be millions after all of those are gone. But no one seems to realize that or care to acknowledge that fact because they've connected that religion, just like Christianity has been so connected to, Caucasians, even though, Roman Catholic Church you know, they're Italian. You have the Roman Catholic Italian. You have Protestant, you have all these different classes that were created in other countries, and other countries celebrate Christianity. It's not just a white thing, but it's been so tied to, white people. As
Definitely. I remember somebody bringing up this point, and I hadn't thought about it before, but we used the term, Islamophobia, and we really use it to mean like anti-Muslim bigotry. You know what I mean? Like racism toward those people. And they were saying, the argument was we shouldn't use the word Islamophobia because, in principle, it shouldn't be wrong to have a problem with an idea. The religion is a set of ideas and beliefs and stuff. You should be able to have a problem with a set of ideas. Those are just ideas. That should be separate from having a problem with a race of people like Arabs or uh, any of those other Middle Eastern countries that you want to single out. But we use the term, Islamophobia because, like I said, we don't really seem to distinguish between the people as races within that region of the world and the actual religious set of beliefs that they share. They're just one and the same. And interestingly, this is something both the right and the left tend to do. On the left, they're the ones that are going to call you racist if you say anything wrong with that religion. On the right, some of them are just racist and they didn't distinguish either. But it seems to be a universal problem with them across the board. It's like you don't even think it's possible to be of Middle Eastern descent and not Muslim, I guess.
Well, and that's the funny thing, because one of the United States' strongest allies is Israel. That's a predominantly Jewish country. You have places, I think, like the United Emirates, they're Christian. You have a lot of pockets of Christianity throughout the Mesopotamian area, to be quite honest. But nobody seems to realize that, there's a lot of different religions, a lot of different cultures that come from that place. Yes, Muslim is the predominant,
Yeah.
religion for the most part. I mean, Islam is the predominant religion, but it's not the only. And further to the point, as we've seen with the, shooting in Texas, killing Americans for no reason, or, doing like vicious, violent acts isn't something exclusive to people who follow the faith of Islam. We hype it up because, unfortunately, we associate it with ISIS and Al Qaeda because those happen to be Muslims who are terrorists. So we just assume that, oh, well, shoot, if you're Muslim, you must be connected to them. If you're Muslim and you're Arab, you're automatically in ISIS, which happened with the guy in New York. Now, he did have ISIS propaganda and stuff like that, but even before they found anything out, boom, he's Muslim, he's Arab, and he said Allahu Akbar. He clearly is of ISIS, which that's not like, the prerequisite requirements to be those three things, because we've seen white ISIS people. We remember the kid years ago who got captured. It's not foreign. It's not a foreign thing to other cultures to join in on that if they wanted to. And we've seen Christian terrorists, in Europe, in other countries, in this country. People forget about Timothy McVeigh, who blew up the Oklahoma government building because he was mad at the government. So.
One issue I have, I guess, is with this. I didn't want to say it like that because that made me feel a little dirty all of a sudden. But on the left, we let people get away if they are. I mean, in general, in America, if we say something is a religious idea, we kind of let you get away with it. But it's unique in Islam because we're a little afraid of being called racist. So people point out that in some of those Muslim majority countries that they've done things like throw gay people off of roofs, or they'll talk about the treatment of women in some of those countries as related to their beliefs and shit. And there's a strong fight against that because there's this feeling that you don't want to be called racist, essentially. You'll have people say, Islam is peace, Islam is that. I'm saying bullshit. I read some of the Quran. I don't think so. Uh, I and I don't want people to say like, oh, but Chris, because a lot of people's first instinct is, if you say something about Islam, they'll say, well, Christianity this.
I
Again,
mean, they'd be right, but
yeah, they will be right. But like, I'm an atheist. I didn't start my sentence
yeah.
off with praise Jesus. You know what I mean?
No,
So,
I
like,
mean, but they'd
I'm
be
not going
right.
to
I
defend
mean,
Christianity.
well, let me just say they'd be right, but at the same time, you can't use that to dismiss the fact that hey, your shit's fucked too.
Right. I think I think there's a unique fear to criticize them because we do criticize Christianity more and more as people become less religious in America. We don't do it with them because, again, I would argue it's somewhat fear there. We let them, I shouldn't say we let them, but we don't acknowledge, the same way with like, black people, we don't acknowledge certain things wrong with our communities, I should say. We refuse to acknowledge certain things wrong with Islam in general, even though we're perfectly fine criticizing Christianity because we're afraid of being called racist there. And
Well,
people jump onto things like, Islam is peace. I use that as a quote because a lot of people say it. I don't think any of those people have read the Quran because I've read, many surahs in there. It's not as peaceful as you're making it out to be.
yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of peaceful stuff, just like there's a lot of positive things in Christianity, but there's a lot of yeah, and the thing is, I feel like when it comes to stuff like that and why it's hard, one is because there's been so much generalization that sadly, when you do have an actual pointed opinion on things like race and religion, the immediate reaction is, okay, you're just one of those people generalizing um,
Right.
us as a whole, like everybody else, which isn't true in a lot of cases. But because, again, and I think this goes back to my whole conversation thing, because we don't actually talk about the situations beforehand or after, it all gets washed up into, yeah, you're just being racist, or you're just being anti-Semitic, anti-Muslim, anti-Christian, because of blank generalization reason from the book of generalization. Um, you know, uh,
Yeah, there's definitely problems there, and
because I mean, there are parts
problems
of the
that's not
Quran
wrong
that tell like the jihad. That is a thing.
that exists.
Now, it's also, and this is the biggest problem with religion, is that a lot of religious tenets, well, pretty much all religious tenets, are up for kind of like what I was saying about some of the amendments of the Constitution. It's up for interpretation, and there's loose definitions. There's not necessarily a go-to, because jihad, you know, can mean something to someone else, but it can mean something else to another person. Um, Extremists tend to lean on the jihad thing because that is what motivates them to do the like terrorist acts that they do. That's how they feel themselves. Just like when you have Christian fanatics, they will lean to certain parts of the Bible, like Sodom and Gomorrah and things like that. God's retribution to justify that's what they're doing. Like, we're just dealing out God's retribution because that's what God, we're being the angel of death, for God, things like that. They'll lean onto those aspects where you hear God bringing down the fury on those that they feel deserve it, that he feels deserves it. That's how they interpret it. Every religion has that part where you can take it and turn it into something even uglier than it's originally may have sounded.
I would argue it's even worse than that Constitution thing because I think part of the issue is people seem to assume that the holy texts are well written and consistent. So, you have somebody, and I've seen this with the Quran, they'll cherry pick something that's, a a decent quote there from the Quran, and they'll say, "See, it says this," so they're like, "See, it is a good book," but that's based on the assumption that all of the rest of the book falls in line with that. Like a lot of the shit, and I'm not pointing out the Quran. This happens in the Bible too. It's just contradictory in general. You can tell it was written over time by different people. It's just not consistent. So you can find good shit. I'm not saying you can't. I'm saying it's not necessarily consistent with everything else you find. I remember I read like the first probably like 6 shows or something. And I remember thinking like, I don't know how anybody thinks this is peaceful. Like, I've seen many references here to killing unbelievers essentially, or at least that they'll go to hell and shit. It's not nice, and maybe it's just more noticeable because I'm an atheist, so it's kind of talking about me. But it's quite noticeable that there are at least some passages that are bad, and when we don't even talk about this, you run into this problem because people will say like, "Oh, those guys are just practicing it badly." One, I'm almost certain you haven't fucking read it. Now, I'm not talking about the Quran by itself. I'm talking about the Bible. A lot of people haven't read them at all. They don't really know what they're talking about. First of all. Second, now you gonna say something?
Oh no, I was waiting for you to finish because, like, I don't want to get too deep into the religion because we got to save something for the religious discussion, Joe. But yeah, but no, I was just saying, yeah. There's a lot of things in a lot of those books that has been rewritten, reinterpreted over the years. And you know what? I'm not going to, say that there is no good in it and that, there is a right or wrong way. Because honestly, I don't believe there's such a thing as a right or wrong way when it comes to religious teachings. It's kind of just a subject that's all up to your interpretation. I do believe there's a right way for people to like go about their lives, and if you need that structure of religion to help guide you, if you're gonna use the positive stuff only, okay, I'm not gonna knock you for that because you're trying to at least do the right thing.
I'll still knock you.
Well, I will only knock you in that sense if you get extreme with it. Like you can, I can accept, I can accept reasonability in anything as long as you're reasonable about how you practice things. I think that's again, I'm not an atheist. I'm probably not really agnostic, but I'd say I'm more spiritual. But I I don't know. I'm a weird case because I can tolerate certain things to a certain degree. It's just when you cross that line where you become extreme and where again pulling it back to the racial thing where you use your religion to denounce a certain race or you use your religion to um, kind of justify that you are of some level of purity over another, like how before we came to this country missionaries went over there and just looked at us and was like they're savages because they don't know about God. They just quickly just told a culture that built pyramids and created all these engineering marvels over the time that they're a bunch of savages because they don't know God. Stuff like that. That's like that hard. That's that line. If you want to like tell people, you want to tell the good stories in the Bible to give an example of how to be a good person, I'm comfortable with that. But it's when you want to tell me that there's something wrong with me because I'm not of the mind of this religiously. And in particular, when it comes to race, where you peg a certain race, certain things, because they don't believe what you believe, that's where I just like, I have no use for religious tenets.
So to clarify real quick, I don't want anybody to think that, when I said I would still get on you, it's just because I'm an atheist and I have a problem with religion.
I know you're going to get on me because you're an asshole.
In general, that's why I get on both. I do sense that there's a bit of a danger, even with moderate religion. And this goes back to the fact that we don't talk enough, in our society. So one of my major problems with religion is that it's not based on any objective rationality. You don't have to try to argue for why something is right. You just kind of have to accept it. It's completely faith based, and when you have something like that, then you're kind of flipping the die. So let's have an individual whose faith, leads them to do good shit, like you said. In general, it leads them to act relatively morally. Fine, but then you have somebody on the other side who is an extremist, as we say. The problem is that you cannot reason them to the other side because neither one of them came to their beliefs based on any reason. You know what I mean? That's the fear I have. Because when it comes to a faith thing, then I'm kind of relying on you to have happened to have a set of faith that works out in the favor of society. But if you have a bad set of faith, like say, we disagree about like a math problem or something, I can prove to you what the answer is. I can't objectively argue with you about morality or anything if you have a bad set of beliefs because you were not reasoned into those beliefs, you just believe them. That is the vulnerability I was pointing out there, is that if you happen to have an individual whose faith just happens to be bad, it's very difficult to reason with them to get them to act morally better because all of their beliefs are purely faith-based. That's the only concern I really have. Other than that, I don't really give a shit what you believe. The point is that we cannot seem to come to any understanding if you don't submit to rationality at all. And then again, in this country, we don't talk about shit. So you have a set of beliefs, and nobody's going to challenge you on them. The general case, because it's just not tasteful to usually talk about religion. So I think for me, it goes down to one, we don't communicate much on it in general, and two, you are not as open to communication because your beliefs are faith-based as opposed to ones developed through reason, or it's not as easy to change your mind to, for us to all come together and agree on something because, again, you were not reasoned into those beliefs, so it's kind of hard to reason you into different ones. That is the concern I was pointing to when I said I'll probably still get on you, because I do think it is a little, we're rolling the dice essentially with a lot of those people when we say that.
That's fine. You want to ruin the religion show, you can ruin it by giving your point, sir.
Oh, I have a lot of other points.
I know. Trust me, I know.
I just don't want people to, because I do feel like a lot of people hear me criticize religion and they'll think, well, he's just an asshole. Like,
I mean, they would be right, but at the same time, they would be calling you an asshole for the wrong reasons.
Yes. So, way more valid reasons.
You have way other points to expound upon as to why you're an asshole. So
yes, and many more points to. I would like to touch on Islam a little bit more at some other time. I held back on getting too deep into that because we do have a time commitment here, and some of these topics we touch are very incendiary. So I do feel like I need an appropriate amount of time to kind of ease people into some of these conversations because the second you say like Islam, I can tell some people are like, what the fuck? Let's kill this guy. What is he talking about?
Well, but that's gonna be the reaction. It's just like me saying the whole thing about the reparations. I'm sure there's gonna be people who's like, you fucking crazy. Yeah, they owe us. And me pointing out the whole us against them, because going back to the conversation the rapper he was having, it was really saddening me because the whole conversation just built to this whole, we need to make sure they do or they give us what we deserve and all of this. And it wasn't necessarily things like, equality, respect as a human being, being treated as a human being, things like that. It was just the things that I find nominal, like the reparations and things like that. And the whole conversation just lent to a whole, we need to be in charge so we can make things better for us and show them how, that's the feeling that I got. And that's the problem. I think the biggest problem with race is that we have all these different issues that have divided us. But instead of trying to say, hey, look, let's find the solution to come to a consensus, I think a lot of us, and again, sorry, Black America, but we are very much like heavily guilty of this in this country, a lot of times it's more of a fuck that. I want to make it so that once we're in charge, they can see how it feels to be like us, type of thing. You know, it's like you kind of come to the table of race with the attitude that you want to get revenge. And that's not the point. Or you want to get revenge or you want to get repaid. And that's not what you should be seeking. At least in my mind, I don't think that's the end game to the whole race relations thing. The end game should be we get to a point where we all acknowledge our differences and respect them enough to be able to work together without treating each other as lesser beings. I don't have to quote. I'm not saying like we need to quote unquote act white or they need to quote unquote act black or anything like that. I'm not saying they need to apologize profusely. I'm just saying, look, we're all pretty much trying to do the same things in life. Be it like if you want to be if you're trying to be rich, yeah, there's a lot of us is out there to be rich. Some of us just want to be content, take care of our families. Some of us wants to live out our dreams. We all have those same goals in life, but don't make things worse for one another because of their skin tone, religion, things like that. It's like life's hard enough as it is.
Yeah,
why are you making things harder for someone else when it doesn't need to be that way?
I think that's a good way to describe some of the differences between both sides of that kind of argument. Because you have some people who are like, all lives matter. We're all the same. We're all whatever. Every time I saw them, I'm like, fuck you. We're not all the same exactly.
Yeah,
and we don't have to be all the same. We can be a little different. And then the other side of that is, we're all different and we have nothing in common. We have some shit in common. We have to be able to find some common ground here. Like,
real quick, how do you feel about I don't see color?
I think it's stupid. First
Okay.
of all, I think it's just kind of people trying to show off how not racist they are. And second, it doesn't make it's not helpful. It's not helpful to not acknowledge that there are differences between black and white people. There are historical, cultural differences that are quite significant. It's not helpful to act like it doesn't exist. You can acknowledge that there are differences, at least historically and culturally, and still strive for equality. You don't have to wash away all the color in the world, I guess, and act like we're all the same. That's not helpful at all.
Yeah, no, it's dumb. If you're Asian, I see that you're Asian. I'm not going to shy away from acknowledging that you're Asian just because I don't hate you for being Asian.
Yeah.
Nor should you want to shy away. And that's the thing I hate too, is like when people shy away from acknowledging their race themselves. That drives me crazy.
I've heard people say, I'm not black, I'm just human.
Yeah.
I hate this idea that like a lot of people argue like, well, it's the words. It's like, I'm not black. Society made me black. Like, a rose by any other name, motherfucker. It doesn't matter. It's just the
yeah. Like, okay, if you want to argue that they shouldn't have labeled us as the word black because black has always had a negative connotation. All right, I'll give you that. That being said, don't dismiss your race.
I'd say it's the other way around. I think, this is people being too obsessed with words. If you look at the history of like what we were called from, nigger, Negro, black, African American, there's a reason we keep changing the word. It's because the underlying racism was still there. And every time we changed the word, it kept tainting that word.
Yeah.
That's why we end up keep changing it. Even black, like as I recall, or somebody mentioned it, it was supposed to be like showing, somewhat of like equality with like white. It's like the counterpart or whatever. But there's a reason that these words always end up feeling dirty. Because the racism underneath in our minds keeps staining those words. That's why we keep changing them every couple decades or so.
Yeah, and it's understandable because, you can't, history can't be dismissed even if you don't think about it. It's something that I do generally believe is embedded in our DNA. Like, our past is within us, and so I can understand it being hard. But and I'm all for not just being called black. Okay, that's fine. If you wanted to use African American, I'm comfortable with that too.
You whatever the fuck you want. Because at the end of the day, it's the idea underneath that matters the most to me.
But at the end of the day, well, yeah, and at the end of the day, you shouldn't dismiss who you are
Right. And it's
because of it. Yeah.
then those people seem to think that if we all just got rid of our labels, we'd all be good. That's like saying if I didn't call a rose, it would suddenly be some other kind of flower. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's still whatever the fuck it is. It's a red, flowery thing. If you didn't call me brown or whatever, I'd still be brown. And if there are
Yeah,
still
if
racism
you want to
ideas,
just call us the brown people, I'm comfortable with that. I mean, I am brown.
if I had
I'm not going to disavow the fact that I am.
if I had a container of food in the fridge that went bad, and I slapped a new label on it and said it was good food, that doesn't mean I could fucking eat it, right? Like, there's the feelings you have towards shit and what they actually are in reality are separate from the labels you use. That doesn't matter. All these people that are like, I don't see color, I'm not a race. Fuck you. That's not the point. That's not the problem.
Yeah.
And getting rid of that shit isn't going to fix it. That's why changing the word of black people every time didn't fix racism.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get rid of the color code, that's fine. I can understand that, but just acknowledge your differences. Don't shy away from your differences. Love your differences. I fucking love being an African American. It's cool. There's some cool things. There's some things, again, like I said before, that I'm not quite so keen on in our history that we've done. But overall, hell, I love, man, this is beautiful to me. And if you, it's not a bad thing to feel that way about yourself. I mean, if you're a white person, you feel like, you're, of course, I think, and it's funny, let's just touch on this really quick before we end, because it just reminded me the whole cultural pride thing when it comes to race. And I've said this in videos before, like from my standpoint, I have no problem with white Americans having white pride if it's done properly. Like how you have Irish pride, they do the parades, they do their the whole St. Patrick's Day to show like they love their Irish heritage. White people, we don't have a problem with you being proud of yourself. It's the way that you utilize it, and again, that goes back to history and the like you were saying with the whole thing about race and color. It goes back to how it was embedded with that racism, because what do we normally associate white pride with?
White supremacy, Nazis.
Exactly, KKK, because they were the people who used it the most prevalently. They would scream white pride, white power, and they would use it, as verbatim to help fuel their racism, their cause. And so that's why that term white pride has such an ugly connotation, because that's generally all you've heard it used as. But to be proud to be white, there are things to be proud of as a white American, or if you want to be more specific, like say German American, Irish American. I mean, there are accomplishments that have been done. I just think that unfortunately, it was done so poorly by a certain group and so loudly that the conversation made it hard for them to feel proud. And I mean, there are a lot of things in their history. I mean, let's be honest. A lot of things that white people in general have done across the globe that wasn't very pleasant. But there are things that they've done that are great and that they can celebrate, I think. Do you have a problem with the white pride in that sense, though?
Yes, but I would also say I have a problem with black pride too. So I take a different stance on that. I don't quite understand the idea of racial or cultural pride in general. then I feel like I should only have pride in personal accomplishments. Like I, I don't want anybody to like come at me like, oh, he's ashamed to be black. I look at being black with more apathy. I guess I did not choose to be black. It's not an accomplishment on my behalf, so I don't tend to have pride in that.
Okay, so I think your thing is you don't understand the reasoning behind certain people, the whole pride thing. I think that's what it is because when
I would say that at the very least, I don't understand what people mean when they use that word. Or at least I would argue that I maybe would use a different word. But
it's just like I brought up Irish pride, and the reason why I understand that is because they remember where it's used for them as a way to like remember like the culture that they came from, their ancestors, to show honor to their ancestors, where they came from, and to basically we all have pride and we all have group pride. If say like your best friend won a Nobel Peace Prize, wouldn't you have pride in that?
I suppose, but I have a more intimate relation. I guess more generally, I'm arguing against even having that kind of pride to begin with. But
Well, but no, it's just like we watch sports, we watch the Olympics. You can't tell me that if a black person wins a gold medal, you don't feel a sense of pride, or do you not?
I don't. In that case,
Really?
I would use the word like admiration. I admire that. Like when I think of things like MLK did, I don't feel
Okay,
pride
so
with
you
him
don't feel
because
pride in certain things, but you did feel pride in MLK.
I was going to say no. I guess my point is when I say the word pride, it makes me feel like I had something to do with it. I would say like I admire individuals like that. I'm trying to separate my personal accomplishments from what they are doing or
And
having
see,
done.
for me, the whole pride thing is just like you're just proud to see someone of your culture do well because we all, we we are tribal, as
I would agree. Yeah,
people are tribal, and that's the thing. It's kind of a tribal. It's not like I'm putting my again. It's not a idea of my pride is putting me above you because we did better than you. It's just like, it's good to see my tribe do well. You know,
I
it's not
agree.
like we don't care about what other people do, but you do feel like that's a surprise. Like when someone that kid in your neighborhood grows up to be, to accomplish his dreams, he wins a scholarship, things like that. Even if you want to take it from a racial standpoint, just like from a community standpoint, there's I can understand community pride. I can understand pride on that level, as long as it's not something to again lift yourself and feel like you're culturally superior because you're um,
Yes,
of that nationality, race, religion, community, what have you.
I agree that that feeling is there and that it's natural in humans. We are naturally tribal. I guess I'm arguing that I actively try to resist that urge because in some cases it doesn't feel quite logical to me to take pride in that. But also, like you saw with the sorry white people, but your history in general, it can lead to dangerous things, and I don't think it's necessary. So I'm not acknowledging that feeling isn't there, but I wouldn't necessarily call it good, and I probably do actively try to resist that urge more
Yeah, and
often
see,
than
I
not.
don't think you should resist that because it's okay to feel that way. Because again, you're not seeking to turn that as a weapon,
No, I guess I'm
are
being
you?
just cautious about it.
Yeah, yeah. You're probably. I think you're kind of being a little overly cautious
Perhaps.
about it, but I can understand because who wants to go down that road?
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean? It's an ugly, ugly road. Again, sorry, white people, but you guys set the example of how
That's
it
the
can
thing is,
go down
it
an
is a
ugly
road you
road.
too easily fall down. I think that's why you describe some bad habits like these people who want like reparations and this and that in our turn because that feeling is somewhat subconscious. I fear it a little bit because it can take, if you're not cautious of it and thinking about it, it is pretty easy to
No,
end
because
up
I
where you don't
mean,
want to be.
no, because I mean, thinking like while they did good, and for the most part, there were factions of the Black Panthers that took Black pride and kind of weaponized it. In some cases, that led to some incidents that probably shouldn't have happened. Um, so yeah, it can be taken to an extreme point by all races. You know,
And then
but
I think in general, I also tend to fear that it's also part of the motivation for us not unifying a little bit more. But in general, I don't want to shit on that emotion. I'm not saying it's inherently bad or anything like that. I just don't, in general, in my life, tend to associate with it. And part of it must probably just because I kind of grew up, a lot of black kids made fun of me, like, hey, you talk white, you're a nerd, blah, blah, blah. So I never really grew up with that sense of attachment to the black community anyway. But in general, purposely, I would argue against doing it, I guess.
yeah, and that you talk white shit. Maybe it's just me. I don't see it. I hate that this could be we could do a whole topic on just race as far as black people alone. I hate that we do that. That proper English means that you talk white. Because that's pretty much what it is. Because maybe if I'm on the phone, I would probably be able to tell you're black. I'm sorry.
I'm not offended.
But that's just me. At the same time, if I were to come and find out that you're white, I'll say, okay. Because sometimes we are influenced by our surroundings. The people who we hang with, if we incorporate things, we incorporate each other behaviors and speech patterns and things like that. So I'm not going to judge your blackness because you don't talk quote unquote black.
I'm just saying it's probably why
it's a silly fucking thing.
Before I had any objective argument for why I wouldn't necessarily promote, strong sense of cultural identity. I have other reasons for that. Probably my first time really thinking about it was just as a child because it's like, I remember when I got older, people were like, "Hey, you're one of us. You're black." I'm like, "Oh, fuck you. You guys didn't want me when I was a kid. No, I don't want to hear that shit now." It was always
making fun. And yeah, we do have
an angsty kid, by the way. I'm more mature.
Yeah, sadly, we do have a habit of situational acceptance.
Yes.
Because let's be.
I got a pretty successful and shit in school and whatever.
Yeah, like I'm sure there were plenty of people talking bad about OJ until all of a sudden that case came up and it somehow became a racial thing. And the OJ case was the funniest thing. I remember being in college during that, and it was the funniest thing in the world because just to see the reaction to both sides was just. I don't know if you were old enough to even remember that, if you were around at all, sadly. But that is a key example of the whole like you're one of us in certain situations, but at the same time, I'm sure he caught the "you abandoned us" thing when he divorced his first wife and married a white woman, and became this.
I dated a white girl once when I was a kid. I remember somebody saying like, "You don't like black people." I'm like, I've been with more black people, but it's just a matter of coincidence, I guess. But
yeah, but again, even that's a situational thing because there's a point of pride for a black man to actually have bedded a white woman. There's still like this weird mandingo shit that goes. It's okay. It's like it's okay if you fuck them. It's just don't be marrying them and making them a part of the family type dumb shit that we do. There's a lot of nuances to like and I'm only speaking about this because I am black and I see it. I'm sure there are nuances within other cultures that are the same goddamn way. There's a lot of weird like interracial problems that we gotta address amongst each other because there's some bullshit. We be on some bullshit.
Yeah, it's interesting. But my main point was, while I have what I think is a more objective argument for not really diving too hard on that cultural pride thing, I did want to at least admit to everybody that I did not grow up feeling accepted by the black community. So I want to bring that up as an acknowledgement that maybe that's, still in the back of my mind, shaping my opinion there. It is worth showing that that might be a reason that I might have some bias. I still would say that my argument is more objective, but I have to put my possible biases on the table, I guess, and acknowledge
Yeah.
that in general I did not grow up.
And, that would be understandable why you wouldn't feel, because if you're being ostracized because of the way you talk, that's the more like the things that you're into. Because it's funny too. Because again, it's another one of those, we've come so far, but there was a point where black nerds were the scourge of the earth. And now it's actually a cool thing to be a black nerd and to be into anime and all of that stuff all of a sudden. But
Really weird.
I'm sure when you were a kid, if you were into that stuff, you'd get, because I know for me growing up, yeah, I was into science fiction and all that stuff, and I was I was a quiet kid, so that even added to the whole weird perception that people would give you, because it's like you're quiet, you're into like science fiction, you're into comic books, all that stuff. Like, you're not doing the quote unquote typical black things.
Exactly. I came in probably at the tail, because you said, now it's cool to be a black nerd. I probably came in on like the tail end of that shift there. Because when I was a kid, it didn't feel cool, but it definitely is now. So it's like I probably came in like right at the end of that transition to where it became cool.
Yeah.
But I do remember, feeling pretty ostracized. But again, I would argue that my argument is objective, but we should all acknowledge things about us that might bias us a little bit. So I like to be upfront with that type of shit.
Yeah, but no, that would be totally understandable. If part of your reason feeling is because of that, because you were, they were trying to kick you out. you can't do that, and you can't do that. You can't pick and choose. Because even like there's this guy who's always on CNN defending Trump, and there was a couple of times where other black, analysts challenged him on his blackness, and he got really mad at that. And you know what? I wholeheartedly agree. You can't, you can't check his blackness. Like, he's black regardless.
Black with
now, if he's loves Trump a lot, I wouldn't say like, oh well, you're just trying to be one of them. No, I would say that you're kind of misguided because you're like Trump, and what the hell is wrong with you for defending him so vehemently on the stupid things he do? Just like I would say to a white person who vehemently defends him on the stupid things he do, But I'm not going to disavow you. I know the big joke going around the internet is like the like race trade thing, where like we kicked who was it they kicked out recently from the black race and wanted to trade him for like Eminem or some shit like that. It's stuff like that. Like, that's silly and all that, but in reality, no, you can't kick us. You can't kick him out. Here's what he is. You may not like what he thinks or like what he says, how he does things. He's still, what he is. So can't disavow. It's sad.
And before we close off, by the way, black people, I do love you just as much as anybody else.
No, you don't.
I don't love you more than anybody else. I'll say that. I hate you all equally. I don't want you to think that I grew
up that is the perfect answer. If you're gonna hate everybody equally.
Yes.
That is the whole point of this. If you're gonna hate, just hate them all the same.
All the same.
Equality is what you want.
The one guy has to think that I just grew up with this animosity toward blacks I just never got over. Didn't have it in the first place. I hate you all the same.
And that's a perfect way to end this. So, all right. So we like to thank you for watching. If you're still watching, if we haven't offended you to the point where you're just like, fuck these two dudes.
I think it's good to have these like long form conversations, because remember when I mentioned not wanting to get too deep into a topic because it's kind of incendiary. I think part of the problem is we don't talk about them long enough, so you only hear the part that pisses you off. So I think when we have these longer conversations, it gives you the chance to get past the pissed off phase and maybe hear out the full argument. So.
Yeah, listening is a like vital part of that. You have to like, and I guess that's why I like doing things like this because I'm always fascinated by people's arguments. Even if I like 100% don't agree with you, I'm still curious to know exactly what's behind that because again, like you've said before, there may be a chance that you might convince me that what you're saying actually sounds good to me. And even if it doesn't, at least I know, at least understand that point of view. And
I would
understanding
like
that
how
point of
you
view.
pulled me over to the cultural pride thing a little bit more than I was before. I at least understood that argument and could see its merits.
Yeah, you know, it's things like that. You can do that. Although I totally do not agree with Terrence Howard that 1 times 1 is 3.
The fuck?
You probably never heard that, but yeah, Terrence Howard actually said that. I had to look up that article. I heard it on the podcast I was listening to, and I looked it up. I was like, yeah, this dude really did just argue that 1 times 1 is actually 3. No, 1 times 1 not 3. 1 times 1 equals 2, not 1.
Okay.
That's what he said. That's exactly what he said.
At least you didn't think the Earth was flat, like some people.
Shh, man, Kyrie Irving, you went to Duke. Come on, dude. I swear.
On that cherry note.
Yeah, but anyway, thank you guys for watching. Like I was saying, you will be getting the Podbean. All audio files will be going up this weekend. So look out for a tweet from me to show the link to where we will be putting all of it. And I'm not just putting this. I'm going to put old episodes of other things. Hopefully, I can encourage my co-host from his or her point to come back and we can start that up. But I'm going to put them all on Podbean. I'm opening up the premium for that so we can host on there. So if you want to listen to it on audio form, you can catch it there, but you'll still be able to catch us here over YouTube. If you want to watch us argue this live on camera, however you want to view it, listen to it, please just go to the links, support, help us grow so we can, continue to build upon this and add more stuff because I have a lot of ideas that I want to be able to expound on. And growth would help with that. So please share this with as many people if you want. Even if you disagree with everything we say, just say, hey, look at these two dumbasses here and listen to what they have to say. It helps, gives exposure. It would be appreciated, definitely. So any last thoughts, sir?
I'm generally correct, so if you disagree, well, fuck you. You're wrong. Sorry. I mean, we should get together and trade ideas, but fuck you. I'm right.
Okay, well, that says it all there. So, with that, we're out of here. We'll see you next time on the Reason Reborn. Peace.